Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Celestial Perch. I apologize I've been gone for so long. I've just been rather busy with work, and just kind of going through with that, so my schedule's been a bit more packed than usual. I still plan on getting videos out, maybe just more so once every week. I'm going to try to continue to develop videos whenever possible. I don't monetize them or receive any funds from them, so it's not much of a change in quality. I'm not going to be trying to rush videos to make money. It's more so just a hobby for me, so you don't have to worry about that. It's just that my time has become a lot more constrained, so I can't just crank out videos like I used to, at least every other day. That might come again in the future, but at least for the foreseeable future, with my workload increasing outside of this, I won't be able to produce as many videos. And going over that, we're going to be diving into our next ethic deep dive. This one will be going over Xenophobe. Now, diving into the structure of the video, it's going to remain relatively similar to the previous ethic deep dives. We're going to be taking a look at just the base benefits that we get from being Xenophobe and Fanatic Xenophobe, and then we will also dive into the principal benefits and principal downsides. Once we've gone over all of the benefits, I'll give a cursory review of each benefit, and then we will rate Xenophobe on the A to F rating, as well Fanatic Xenophobe on the same rating scale. Now, taking a look at Xenophobe overall, you can see here that we get negative 20% Starbase influence cost and plus 10% pop growth speed. This is doubled for the Fanatic variant for a minus 40% Starbase influence cost and a plus 20% pop growth speed. There are also several principles that we have to keep in mind, some being beneficial and some being a downside. First, we can use the Fear Campaign Edict. We can purge and displace aliens. We can enslave aliens. We can use the livestock slavery option. We have decreased opinion with alien empires, and several other downsides, being we cannot grant aliens full citizenship, full military service, we cannot use the refugees welcome species policy, or the proactive first contact stance. Now, the first bonus to consider would be the reduction in our Starbase influence cost. As we can see here, for the regular Xenophobe, we get a minus 20%, and for Fanatic, a minus 40% Starbase influence cost. The base cost is 75, so as shown here on the screen, it can reduce it quite a bit, and will save you a hefty amount of influence in the early game. Stacking things like either Xenophobe or Authoritarian in your game, not necessarily taking both, but just taking one of them, will probably allow you enough influence generation to get all of the territory that you need to build a powerful enough fleet to rival your neighbor or take them over and subjugate them. As well, save up enough for early to mid-game vassalization contracts, and once you make it into the late game, building stuff like megastructures, you should have well and enough influence saved up by then. The overall power of influence isn't where it used to be before the Unity update. Don't get me wrong, it's still useful. It just depends a lot more now on your playstyle. If you're planning to just simply take people over, either through subjugation or war goals, really you're looking to reduce your claim influence cost, or just take people over through subjugation and spend your influence on those contracts, there's less of a use of influence compared to before. So it's not as powerful as a benefit as it used to be, especially once you realize that you don't necessarily need to take over all of the territory next to you. You just need several choke points, you're guaranteed habitable worlds, and you should be able to contest the AI. Now, the real power of Xenophobe comes in its second benefit here, which is 10% pop growth speed for the regular Xenophobe and plus 20% pop growth speed for the Fanatic variant. Pop growth speed is one of the more important modifiers that you can receive in Stellaris. Having extra pops means extra jobs, those jobs mean more resources, and that, in a 4X game, is key to winning. And it's no different in Stellaris. Having extra pops will just put you ahead of your neighbors or your opponents, and will just give you a stronger overall economy. When it comes to 10% and 20% respectively, this can be easily compared to something like Rapid Breeders, which will give you 10%, though simply taking 1 point into Xenophobe will give you the exact equivalent of just the Rapid Breeders trait. Now, when looking at pop growth speed itself, it's actually broken down into 3 distinct factors. I've gone over this in other videos, but just a brief refresher. Pop growth speed has your base growth, which is tied to your planetary capacity. It has your pop growth speed modifiers, which are tied to things like ethics, your species, and just other general empire modifiers. And lastly, your pop immigration and emigration. All of these will factor into your overall pop growth speed, and it's important to know that the most important of these would be your base pop growth speed, then your modifiers, and then immigration and emigration. The immigration and emigration can swap in effectiveness or importance depending on how much of a focus you have on that. Obviously, if you're focusing on an immigration-emigration build, that's going to be more important than the modifiers, and can have upwards of 10 to 12 extra pop growth speed. But in general, you're going to want to focus on getting your base pop growth speed to the maximum that you can, and then stacking the percentage multipliers. Xenophobe just being an added benefit to an otherwise already important strategy, and just general playstyle within Stellaris. Now, those are the two just brief overviews of the base benefits of Xenophobe and Fanatic Xenophobe, but for both the ethics, there are also several principal benefits and downsides. The first benefit is that we get access to the Fear Campaign Edict. Now, campaigns, as opposed to just regular edicts that you receive, campaigns are funded by energy and are unlocked through the planetary unification technology. Now, Xenophobe will give you access to the Fear Campaign at the start of the game. It does have the requirement, obviously, of being Xenophobe, but you also have to have communications with another empire before you can use this. It has a base cost of 15 energy, and will increase your monthly unity by 10%, and your Xenophobe ethics attraction by 25%. On the surface, it's relatively powerful, and extra unity and extra Xenophobe ethics attractiveness are not bad. The issue is just the scaling with this edict. Generally speaking, within the early game, when you might be interested in running this, the cost can be prohibitive. When you get to the point where this edict is costing you 25, 40 energy, when you might possibly be running it, due to how empire size works in Stellaris, you're very quickly going to be running up the edict upkeep on this, and running it will not be as useful as you'd expect. It doesn't come into as much power as something like Information Quarantine, or Veneration of Saints, or Peace Festivals, because those are Unity, and you have your Unity Edict Fund. Campaigns are simply just energy costs, and your energy is better spent either in a stockpile or purchasing other resources through the market, so even negative 15 energy can be a bit steep within the early game. Another principal benefit that we get is the ability to purge and displace aliens. We don't have to, but we have the ability to. If you take someone over, and you simply do not like their pops, maybe they're not effective, they're designed poorly, or you just have too many pops, you can displace them or purge them. There are several different types of purging, and some of them are tied to different ethics or civics, so it is important to keep that in mind, and you won't be able to use every type of purge, but it is still an effective way to reduce the amount of population within the game. And an added side effect to this is that you can reduce the lag on your computer by simply removing the pops, as that is what usually causes the most issues with lag in the game. Not something directly tied to gameplay, but it can improve your enjoyment of the game overall. Still, being able to purge and displace pops can't be understated in its power, and having access to this is rather nice. In addition to the next thing that we get, which is also rather nice. The ability to enslave aliens is tied to either being xenophobe or authoritarian. Both in my opinion, very powerful ethics. Tying it to xenophobe is also rather nice, as we get the extra pop growth speed compared to that of authoritarian, which has relatively weaker benefits in terms of just the actual ethic benefit. But having the ability to enslave aliens is very, very nice. Reduced housing upkeep, reduced amenities upkeep, as well as just added benefits of lower political power and extra worker resource output within different types of slavery. As shown here on the screen, you can have slavery types like indentured servitude, grid amalgamation for machine empires. You can also have livestock for food, chattel slavery for just basic workers. It's rather versatile in its use and will allow you a lot of flexibility and power throughout the game, choosing which aliens you want to enslave. And considering you're xenophobe, you don't really have to worry about irritating your regular population, as most of them will be part of the Xenophobe faction anyways. Now, Xenophobe also gets access to a specific type of slavery. They get access to the livestock slavery type. Similar to hive minds, which also get access to this, it will reduce their happiness by 40%, which is only 10% more than chattel slavery. But instead of getting 10% worker resource output, we instead get minus 50% housing usage and minus 10% political power. Overall, pretty solid. It does give us an opportunity to really cram a lot of pops onto a singular planet. It's just, a lot of the times you can balance your empire a little bit easier just by using chattel slavery and indentured servitude, and livestock does have its fringe uses, but isn't necessarily carrying this ethic into a higher tier. Now that we've looked at all of the benefits for being a xenophobe, there are several policy downsides to consider. The first one being is that we just have a general opinion decrease with other empires. The modifier is reduced by 5 all the way to 20, depending on the type of empire we're interacting with. If we are interacting with another xenophobe with the same main species archetype, then it's only -5. If we are Fanatic Xenophobe interacting with a different main species archetype, then it's -20. This modifier is only really impactful in single player, when you actually have to care about your relations, and it can quickly deteriorate. Starting in the negative makes it harder to get back into the positive, obviously, and the closer you start to positive relations, the easier it is to get there, and the easier it is to take advantage of the AI once you are friends. So there are downsides related to this, it's just exclusively within single player. You just have to keep that in mind. Now moving on to the other policy downsides, we cannot grant aliens full citizenship, grant aliens full military service, we cannot use the Refugees Welcome species policy, and cannot use the proactive first contact stance. Generally speaking, you wouldn't want to use many of these anyways if you were planning on being a xenophobic empire. The only one that could be kind of annoying is the full citizenship. Sometimes it is nice to be able to grant certain species full citizenship. The others, less so of importance. Full military service, Refugees Welcome, and proactive first contact all will have relatively little impact on your game, and for the most part you'll use other policies anyways. The Refugees Welcome can result in some little extra pop growth speed, or just extra pop growth in general. It's just that sometimes those pops will have very different forms of ethics, and it can decrease your stability on certain planets. It's very, very minor though, not something to worry about, and losing access to it, also very, very minor. Now, when looking at some of the other things that will affect Xenophobe and Fanatic Xenophobe, being the Civics and the faction, starting with the Civics first, there are several Civics that are restricted, or at least require Xenophobe. Showing them up here on the screen, most of these are fairly good. Some of them a bit more niche than others, but still powerful in their own right, and stuff like Fanatic Purifiers, which require you to be Fanatic Xenophobe, kind of push Fanatic Xenophobe into a slightly better light, as Fanatic Purifiers is rather powerful when going for that style of gameplay. Now, there also are several Civics that you cannot take while you're a Xenophobe. Listed up here on the screen. You wouldn't generally take these anyways, as they don't really mesh well with the Xenophobe playstyle, so you're not at too much of a loss for losing these Civics, and there are other ways to make up for their loss, just by taking other more powerful Civics exclusive to Xenophobe, or simply just by taking more meta standard pick Civics. And next you can move on to the faction. Now listed up here on the screen, the Supremacist faction, which is the Xenophobe faction. In general, at least within the early game and throughout the game, this is going to be one of the easiest, if not the easiest faction to please, at least in my opinion, as just staying with the Xenophobe playstyle, having exclusively your citizens ruling, attacking your neighbors, using unrestricted observation, aggressive first contact. A lot of these are just things that you can change as soon as the factions appear and appease them, or are just naturally appeased by being xenophobic. So the faction itself is immensely easy to please, and you will get a little bit of extra unity out of it, and your pops in general will be a bit happier. So overall, pretty easy to please the faction, and it does lend a little bit of extra power to just playing Xenophobe. Now that we've gone over all of the main benefits and downsides to Xenophobe in some detail, we're going to look at both the regular and Fanatic variants of Xenophobe and give them a rating on the A to F scale. For regular Xenophobe, I'm going to give it just a solid A. Overall, for just a singular point, it's very, very powerful. You get access to slaves, you get access to purging, you also get extra pop growth speed, and the influence saved at the start of the game is rather nice. The downsides in terms of policies can be easily navigated or just ignored completely, and the overall benefits you get from Xenophobe just really help you throughout the game. It's important to mention that it's not the best. There are some downsides to it. It probably could even fall within the A- territory depending on your situation. Having that negative modifier towards your opinion can really hurt in single player. In multiplayer, a Xenophobe probably would be like A+. It's very, very powerful in multiplayer, as you just don't have to worry about the opinion modifiers at all. It's really boiling down to just people's actual opinion of you, and that doesn't reflect in-game. If you want to build a federation, just simply send an envoy to someone, and you can do it. Though there really isn't much of a downside to Xenophobe in multiplayer. People won't treat you any differently, unless of course you're playing a Fanatic Purifier, then they will, rightfully so. But overall, regular Xenophobe has quite a few benefits, with the only drawback being that the AI will like you just a bit less. Even still, you can get around that with finagling with envoys, managing specific things, and just overall being more powerful than your neighbors. That is the easiest way to deal with the downsides of Xenophobe, and having the extra pop growth speed and just the slavery benefits will help you get there. Now, when looking at Fanatic Xenophobe, it's in a similar boat to regular Xenophobe, but just slightly worse in my opinion. There's a higher opportunity cost to taking this, and that's why I've put it in just the B to B+ tier. It will more so depend on your build and your gameplay style, as Fanatic Xenophobe won't be for everybody, so it doesn't really fall into that kind of ubiquitous A tier. It is still very, very powerful though. But the downsides in single player are a bit more noticeable. People will like you a lot less, it's a lot harder to become friends with the AI, and there are quite a few benefits to being friends with the AI. But still, it is very powerful. The pop growth speed will help you get extra pops, which, as stated before, is just a very, very important aspect within Stellaris. The extra savings on influence, although relatively minor, can help you and could help you with specific playstyles related to megastructures or vassalization. And of course, all of this can be disregarded when applying to multiplayer. And in multiplayer, both Fanatic Xenophobe and regular Xenophobe would probably fall into that A tier. There's little to no downside to take it. That should cover it for this video. I've been rather busy recently, so I plan on releasing a few new videos here throughout the month, but they'll be a bit shorter in nature, just to help keep me a little bit more on schedule and have a few more videos out. I'm gonna try to condense it and go over some topics that can maybe be covered in 5 to 10 minutes. But thank you, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please like and comment, subscribe, but of course, have a blessed day.